All right, today we're diving into something really special. It's this super personal piece of spiritual writing that feels incredibly raw. We're talking about a first-person journey, a real struggle with doubt, trying to find purpose, and, the totally unexpected power of grace. This thing reads less like some formal, stuffy document and way more like a page ripped out of a diary. It's this really intimate confession of a soul just grappling with what it's all for and its relationship with the divine. So, right off the bat, the author confesses to this state of languor. It's an old school word, right? But it just perfectly nails that feeling of deep spiritual burnout. They're saying, look, something had to happen to get me moving, like a push from someone else. But to actually finish the journey, that had to be all them, a direct personal thing. But this journey almost immediately hits a major snag. The author gets a new assignment, a new purpose, but it just triggers this huge crisis of self-doubt. And they explain it with a really powerful metaphor. The instruction sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Just be a good shepherd over your own senses, your own inner world. But for our author, this idea brings on immediate difficulty and just this wave of discouragement. They feel totally unequal to the task. And here's why, which I find fascinating. The author feels less like a true dedicated shepherd and more like a hired shepherd. Someone who's just punching the clock, going through the motions because it's a job, not because their heart is in it. They feel like they've got other capabilities, but for this role, they feel completely useless. But then there's a shift. The author finds comfort not by gritting their teeth and trying to be a better shepherd, but by completely changing how they see their relationship with the divine. A totally different metaphor pops into their head, and it changes everything. This is such a critical pivot. They go from seeing themselves as a paid worker to a loving bride. Think about it. A bride preparing a meal isn't doing it for a paycheck. She's doing it out of love. And her reward isn't a wage, it's affection, caresses. The author has this light bulb moment. What if their service isn't a job, but an act of love? Then the response won't be a transaction, but the sweetness of thy graces. So, armed with this new, much more loving way of looking at things, the speaker is given two metaphorical tools. And these are like practical mental techniques for dealing with what the text calls the windings and labyrinths of our own emotions. Okay, so the first tool they get is called the green rod of fear. Now, hold on. Fear here doesn't mean what you think. It's not about being terrified. It's more like a healthy dose of self-awareness, a conscious check. It's this mental tool you're supposed to use to immediately pump the brakes on a strong emotion. Doesn't matter if it's joy, fear, or anger. Right when it pops up, before it just takes over. And the second tool is the newborn lamb. This is brilliant because it shows that you're not just supposed to crush the emotion. You don't just suppress it. Instead, you transform it. Once you've contained it with that rod, you take its raw energy, purify it, and offer it up to God like a precious gift, a feast. You're sanctifying your feelings, not denying them. So this all comes together into a pretty clear 4-step process for your mind. Step 1, an emotion shows up. Step 2, you check it with that rod of fear, that conscious restraint. Step 3, you get your physical reactions under control. And step 4, you offer up that contained emotional energy as the purified newborn lamb. Now, this all sounds like a pretty neat system, even if it's really hard. But what happens when it doesn't work? What happens when you just aren't quick enough with that rod? Well, this is where the confession takes its final and maybe most powerful turn. The speaker is just brutally honest here. They flat out admit they fail a lot. How many times, they say, have they just blown it and acted out of malicious lightness or let a passionate word or action slip out? There's no pretense of being some kind of master of this technique. And this is the absolute heart of the matter, the response to that failure. The author is probably bracing for judgment, right? For anger, but instead, they experience something totally unexpected. A look of tenderness and sweetness, almost as if the failure didn't even happen. It's a pure moment of unearned grace. And this is the big reveal, the ultimate takeaway from the whole thing. That unexpected, totally unearned tenderness, it does something that fear could never do. It fills the author's soul with these transports of sweetness. And get this, it becomes a way more powerful reason to change than any threat of punishment ever was. It's kindness, not condemnation, that actually sparks the real deep change. And so, this text from centuries ago leaves us with a question that is just as relevant today as it was then. In our own lives, when we're trying to be better, what actually works? Is it the fear of messing up? Or is it that incredible, transformational experience of being met with grace, even when we have?